The story begins with a man named Alex and his girlfriend, Scarlett, driving along Route 66 on their way to Los Angeles. Along the way, Scarlett starts to feel sick and asks Alex to pull over. He does, and she immediately throws up. After she manages to get herself together, they continue the journey, and later that night, they stop by a hotel called El Rancho to rest for the night. By this time, Scarlett seems to be feeling a lot better. She tells him she feels like she's been at the hotel, but Alex suggests that they all look the same, reminding her that they've both never been to the town before. When they enter the building, they're taken aback by the spooky lobby, and Alex is reluctant to stay at the place, but Scarlett tells him she likes it and proceeds to get a room while he gets their bags. Inside the room, Scarlett reveals 2 bottles of tequila that she got from the front desk in the lobby and pours shots into 2 glass cups for them to drink. While drinking, she asks Alex to tell her the most despicable thing he's ever done in his life. After struggling hard to recall, he comes up with a pathetic story of how he took a large discount on some snacks. She just laughs and proceeds to reveal her own dark story. Scarlett tells him about her cousin Wayne from years ago who lost his mom in a car accident. She reveals that she was young at the time, and so her parents made her take care of Wayne. However, she didn't like him. She felt he was disgusting, and so whenever she babysat him, she bullied him and abused him in all forms. By the time she's done with the story, Alex is dumbfounded, but then Scarlett breaks the silence by laughing hard. With Alex still perplexed, she tells him the most despicable thing she's ever done is tell him the story, insinuating that she just made it up. Afterward, the two have a moment before proceeding to get frisky with each other, and then they fall asleep. Alex wakes up in the middle of the night to see the TV set turned on. He sees a preacher passing on a message and turns it off. Suddenly, he sees Scarlett curled up in a corner of the room, so he goes to check on her, and she tells him that she thought she heard someone in the room with them. Alex comforts her, suggesting that she might still be sick, and blames it on the tequila. He then goes out to the window and sees a hooded man staring out their window, so he closes the curtains and goes back to bed. The next morning, Alex and Scarlett pack their things so they can continue their journey to LA. He then sees the masked guy wearing a hoodie from the previous night. Just like before, the man is staring at them and eating an apple. Alex tries to confront him, and after taking a closer look, he sees that the man has a scar across his mouth. When Scarlett comes out of the building, Alex looks at her, and when he turns back, the hooded guy is gone. He just waves off the encounter and starts the car so they can get out of the place. When they get back on the road, Alex turns on the radio, and the voice of the same preacher from that morning starts playing. Scarlett suddenly starts to feel sick again. She tells him that the further they go, the more it hurts. She explains the feeling like a heavy weight pressing on her chest, and that it's like she's falling from the sky. Alex suggests meeting a doctor, but she tells him that there might not be a doctor for her situation, and asks him to turn the car around. He reluctantly agrees, and on their way back, they see the church of the preacher. But when Alex tries to take a look, Scarlett snaps at him, asking him to drive back to the hotel faster. When they get back to the hotel, Scarlett lies down on the bed and asks Alex to go upstairs for a beer so she can sleep. Later at the bar, he receives a call from who he assumes is Scarlett, so he rushes back to the room. Once again, he finds her curled up on the bed with the TV on and the preacher passing a message. Scarlett seems to be afraid and tells Alex that the preacher is trying to tell her something. At this point, he's had enough, so he turns off the TV and suggests that they leave the town. They set out after dark, but Scarlett starts to feel sick again, and as Alex drives faster, she screams in pain. Suddenly, the hooded man appears in front of the vehicle, so Alex swerves to avoid hitting him, but then just like before, the guy disappears. As a result of Scarlett's condition, he decides to take her back to the hotel so they can rest for the night. That night, Alex dreams that Scarlett buried him, and when he wakes up, she's gone. He searches all over the hotel but doesn't find her, and when he returns to the room, the TV comes on by itself, and the preacher just stares at him, not saying a word this time. Alex becomes afraid and confused, and then receives a call from the hooded guy, telling Alex that he's the only one who can help him make sense of his current situation. Alex carries a metal tool to defend himself, but when he follows the hooded guy, he's shocked to see that the weapon is no longer with him, and now with the man. The hooded men then threaten him and suggest that they go somewhere. Seated in the back of the car, the hooded man directs Alex to a desert. There, he tells him that he takes people of his choosing to the site and buries them alive there. Using Scarlett as an example, the man tells Alex that there's an entire city of pain underneath them and suddenly disappears. Later that night, Alex drives to the church and finds out it's not a church. It's just the preacher broadcasting messages alone. He promises to explain things to Alex after his message. Alex takes the time to look around and finds a gun inside a Bible. He also finds Scarlett's picture, so he confronts the pastor. Unfortunately, the weapon mysteriously leaves his hand and appears with the preacher. After revealing that Scarlett is his daughter, he tells him that he's in her dream and shoots him. Alex wakes up in a house elsewhere, as if in another life. Here, he has a wife named Paige, but knows nothing about her. After a weird day, Paige tries to sleep with him, but he pushes her away. The next day, he drives to the hotel to find out what's going on, but when he gets there, neither the bartender nor the receptionist recognize him. Later that night, he drives to the place where the church was, but it's gone. He ends up sleeping in his car and is woken up by an officer the next morning. He asks about the church, but the officer tells him it doesn't exist. Strangely, he says a quote that the preacher told him and then asks him to leave. Afterward, Alex drives to the desert and digs a hole. He follows a feeling and eventually seems to be hearing something from under the ground. He returns home and Paige asks him where he's been, but he just ignores her. The next morning, Alex is shocked to see Scarlett outside his house. Turns out that she's his neighbor in this life, but when he approaches her, she doesn't seem to recognize him. Later that night, he stalks her to a store, but she sees him following her through a reflection. Suddenly, the image of the hooded guy appears behind Alex, startling him, and when he turns around, Scarlett is gone again. At home, he opens a can of peas and counts them. He finds a single rotten pea inside, and when a perplexed Paige meets him doing that in the middle of the night, he explains that he wanted to find out if he's dreaming. He tells her how a human mind wouldn't go out of its way to place a single rotten pea in a can if he were dreaming. Paige finds his behavior weird and just goes back to bed. The next morning, Alex sees Scarlett and her father outside together. Paige asks him to open up to her, so he finally agrees to tell her. He tells her how he feels like he's in someone else's dream and that he doesn't exist. As you'd expect, Paige comforts him and afterward, the two have intercourse, but all the while, Alex can't stop thinking of Scarlett. That night, Alex wakes up to find Paige counting the peas in the kitchen, but when she sees him, the can disappears and a glass of milk appears as she tells him she got up because she was thirsty. The next morning, when Scarlett goes out, Alex sneaks into her house to find out the truth about what's been happening to him. Inside her room, he finds childhood pictures of Scarlett and her paralyzed cousin Wayne taken in the town where the church and the hotel are. Suddenly, Scarlett comes back home, so Alex hides in the closet, but the moment she enters her room, she already knows someone is in there with her. She asks him to come out and concludes that he's come to assault her. Alex tries to explain that they're in love, but she doesn't care about that. Instead, she asks him to force himself on her. He refuses and tries to leave, but she yells and her father walks in. She tells him that Alex tried to assault her, so the man attacks him. Alex defends himself, but Scarlett cuts him across the mouth in the process. After knocking her father out, Alex ties Scarlett up and drives back to the spooky town. By morning, they arrive at the place where the picture was taken, and Alex concludes that it was the house where she grew up. Alex ties her to a chair and asks her where the guy in the picture is. Showing no remorse, she admits to killing her cousin, pointing out that he'd have had a miserable life. Alex deduces that she buried him in the fire pit. He begins digging up the place, and after a while, he finds Wayne's bones there. Suddenly, Alex starts to remember what happened to Wayne, and he's confused because of this. However, in a shocking twist, it turns out that Alex is Wayne. He begins to remember how Scarlett buried him and how a crushing weight pressed against his chest while he lay only with his head above the sand. Scarlett then tells him that she's been waiting for him for a long time. She asks him to kill her so she can atone for her sins. Alex hesitates, but then she tells him she'd kill him over and over again. Scarlett tells him that if anyone asks what happened to him, she'd just tell him the same sob story she told the first time, that a hooded man broke in, threw Wayne in a hole, and assaulted her. Hearing this, Alex kills her with a shovel, and we see that Scarlett dies in real life after committing suicide. The story ends with Alex burying Scarlett in the same way she buried Wayne.